All right. What's up, college football fans, quarterback fans, just anyone tuning in? Thanks for tuning in and watching another QB Spotlight episode. This is your first time tuning in. Thank you. We're just a big quarterback hub. We talk all things quarterbacks. And today we're talking about week 7, previewing the week 7 matchups of the college football. Quarterbacks are going to dive into some previews over a few games that involve both quarterbacks and just talk about some of the quarterbacks in college football that have been doing well so far and have certain matchups that we want to get into. So like I said, we're just a big quarterback hub. We talk all things college football quarterbacks, but we also have current and former quarterbacks come on the podcast, coaches come on the podcast. So if you like that type of stuff, like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. So we got a few games we're going to dive into. Last week we had a few more deep dives than this week, but we still have some deep dives we want to get into, and we're doing this a little bit earlier than usual. We've been trying to do this, trying to make this a weekly show, but yeah, we're going early AM right now. So let's dive into it. Before I dive into it, actually, some really good games last night, right? Coastal and App State. It was nice to see Grayson McCall come back and have a really good game. Several touchdown passes. They got Coastal up early and they were able to hold off App State to come back and have that game-winning field goal at the very end. So nice to see Grayson McCall have a good game. Aguilar made some good throws too. I know that fumble was killer on that pass, but Aguilar made some good throws for App State as well. The Middle Tennessee and La Tech game also had some good quarterback play as well. Middle Tennessee's quarterback, I'm going to butcher the last name. Vadiato, so I apologize, but he had some big plays, had that real nice touchdown throw, and that the fade that I think got them up 10-6, something like that. Had a really nice throw, and then of course seeing Bachmeyer come in and doing some nice things in the second half. So some good quarterback play overall, and then of course Caden Salter from Liberty, they beat Jacksonville State last night. Just a big play guy, right? He was second in the country and completions thrown 20 yards or more down field. So they did a nice job last night against Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State played 3 different quarterbacks last night. So that's the quarterback news from the group of 5 games last night, right? All right, so we're going to dive into it. Let's talk Washington and Oregon. Usually, we haven't talked a ton of Pac-12 besides Shedeur on this show so far, just because a lot of the people that watch and keep up with us are more in the SEC. But let's talk Washington, Oregon. Game of the week right now. May end up being one of the games of the year. And 2 really, really good quarterbacks that they're getting publicity, but they haven't maybe been getting as much as some of the others for a simple fact. They've been dominating teams. Now, Michael Penix has been getting a lot of publicity, but at the same time, I don't think a lot of people have actually watched him play. Just from the time difference being in Washington, right? I don't think a lot of people have watched him play necessarily. So we'll talk Bo Nix, then we'll talk some Michael Penix, talk about what each quarterback needs to do to have success against the opposing defenses and kind of what they've done so far this year that maybe show us what they need to do against the defense. So let's talk Bo Nix first. Let's talk the defense. And real quick, Washington and Oregon both have pretty much killed everyone they've played except one team. Washington was close against Arizona, and Oregon was close against Texas Tech. Texas Tech very easily could have won that game the way things were going, right? Or could have won that game, I shouldn't say easily. But both ended up winning, and then they've pretty much been destroying most other opponents that they've played. Bo Nix, Oregon. What does this Washington defense kind of present to Bo Nix? I don't think we've seen Washington's defense at their A game yet. They haven't necessarily needed to, just because they've been a lot of the points against them have been kind of in garbage time, just because they've had some pretty big blowouts from Michigan State to Boise State. They've had some blowouts, so I think we'll see a pretty good defense from Washington this week. However, so far they've only had 6 sacks in 5 games. They've had 78 total hurries. That's with pressures, sacks, anything causing the quarterback to have some havoc back there. But I don't know exactly how they're planning to attack Oregon's offense, right? Could they, Oregon does a lot of short games. So are they going to get some pressure and threaten, give them the shot to go deep, or force them to go deep, or give them opportunity to go deep? I don't know. Probably not. But regardless, I still think this Washington's defense is good. That their highest point total they've given up is 24 or 24 and 32, excuse me. And so I still think Washington's defense poses a threat, right? All right, so let's talk Bo Nix. What does he need to do against this defense? I think number one is just continue to play the game they've been playing, continue to run the offense that they've been running. The offense has been super successful, super efficient. They had one slow game against Stanford, right? But then they got rolling and still ended up scoring 42 points. So I think you just run the offense. And what does their offense consist of? Well, number one, they rely on the offensive line. Their offensive line has been fantastic. They're only giving up 8% of pressures, or of all the dropbacks that Bo Nix has had, only 8% of those dropbacks have had pressure. That's fantastic. Anytime you're in the single digits as far as pressure you're getting on dropbacks is outstanding. So one, run your offense, rely on your offensive line. Two, I think you have to set up the deep ball at times. They don't throw deep a lot. The majority of their completions are actually behind the line of scrimmage. I think 54 completions out of the 54 completions have been behind the line of scrimmage. 105 completions from Bo Nix have been thrown 9 yards or less. That's up there. Only 23 completions, the ball's been thrown 10 yards or more. Now, there hasn't been a big need to hit those deep plays per se yet, and their offense calls to get the ball out quick. But still, they haven't really needed to take any deep shots. They've only had 8 completions of 20 yards or more downfield, which actually is pretty good. He's actually been pretty good when they've done it. He's actually been excellent, probably, right? When they've taken those shots, they just haven't really needed to. So, do they need to hit deep shots to win this game? I think if you run the offense, you can hit it. You can hit some here and there. I don't think necessarily need to. Bo Nix has been extremely accurate, 80% completion percentage. The ball comes out quick, like we just talked about. Balls behind the line of scrimmage, balls thrown, in that 0 to 9 yard range. And then when the DBs creep in, when the opportunity presents itself, is when Bo Nix takes that shot. And like we said, only 23 completions of the ball thrown 10 yards or more, but they haven't needed to. So maybe you need to against Washington. I don't know. But I think if you run your offense, you're going to have some success. And then the play action attack. Bo Nix has been great on play action. He's 47 of 61, 10 touchdowns, right? So 10 of his 15 touchdowns have come off play action, 588 yards passing. A lot of the play action is those quick screens that they do, or the ball is getting out quick and they have a quick fake to the running back. But still, Bo Nix has run that offense outstanding, very efficient. The ball comes out quick. The deep shots are thrown when necessary, but the defense presents themselves, right? So keys for Bo Nix, I think it really comes down to just run the offense. Just run the offense that you've been running. Let the DBs kind of creep forward in all those short game. And then when it calls for it, throw a deep ball, right? All right, so let's move on to Michael Penix and what he needs to do against Oregon's defense. Oregon's defense has looked really good in every game except that Texas Tech game. But against Tech, they still had 3 interceptions, I believe. Like, they're still getting pressure on Tyler Shuck. There were just some bigger plays, and Shuck was able to run the ball and have some success against them. But overall, the Oregon's defense has been stout. I mean, everyone watched the game against Colorado, and they saw how good they were, right? So real quick, let's look at some stats. Every game every game they've played besides the Tech game, they haven't given up more than 10 points, right? So outstanding there. They have 19 sacks. And yeah, a lot came against Colorado, but they have 19 sacks. They've got 4 interceptions. 3 of those come against Tech, I believe. But they're going to want to get pressure. I think that they're going to want to get pressure and kind of cause some havoc on Michael Penix. They're not going to want him to be able to sit back and hit those deep shots that he's been able to hit. So they're going to want to get pressure. So what does that mean for Penix? What does that mean for the Washington offense? How can you have success against Oregon's defense? Well, I think number one, the ball come out quick. Get the ball out quick for Penix. Kind of what Oregon's offense is, but I think you get the ball out quick if you're Penix. And I'm not saying you don't take those deep shots, because that's part of their offense. That's why they're so good. Like, Michael Penix is tied for number 1 in the nation when it comes to completions of balls thrown 20 yards or more downfield. That's outstanding. And he's been extremely accurate doing that as well. It's not just like he's thrown a bunch and happened to hit him. He's 20 of 38 on those type of passes for 712 yards and 4 touchdowns. So I think if you're Penix, you don't necessarily try to get away from the deep ball. But if Oregon's defense knows he's been successful pushing the ball downfield, they know they have several solid weapons, several solid receivers to throw to. So they're probably going to limit that, at least at first, right? Or at least try to. So I think if you're Michael Penix and you're Washington, I think you get the ball out quick. You get some underneath type throws, get some underneath type completions going on. And then, kind of like we talked about with Bo Nix and Washington and the Washington defense, in hopes that Oregon's defense kind of creeps up. And that's when you take your deep shots, right? Another thing about Washington, their offensive line has been great as well. He's only been under pressure 17% of his dropbacks, which is pretty good. It's not as good as the Oregon's offensive line, but their offense is a little different where the ball comes out so quick mostly every play, right? 17% pressure on dropbacks is still pretty good. So the offensive line has been great for Washington as well. And Michael Penix, he's been able to distribute the ball throughout the entire field. So I think continuing to do that against Oregon's defense could be key as well. It's kind of similar to Oregon's offense, right? You just run the offense that you've been doing and do it better than the defense that you're playing against. But real quick, Michael Penix, the ability to distribute the whole field, I think, is valuable. He has right under 2,000 yards passing, 1,999, I believe, or right around there, if I'm not mistaken. 943 of those yards have been thrown outside the numbers. 1,061 yards have been between the numbers, so more middle of the field type throws. So it's been pretty even. Most of the time, you don't see those numbers that closely together. Most of the time, it's between the numbers are going to be a lot higher. But the fact Penix has been able to put the ball anywhere he wants it. He's been able to distribute the ball the entire field. Those numbers are pretty even from outside the number throws to inside the number throws. That's going to force the defense to defend the whole field, which can be tough, obviously, right? So if you're Penix, number one, you get the ball out quick. Number two, continue to distribute the ball throughout the entire part of the field. Or if Oregon is giving you part of the field, he's going to be able to maximize that, right? And then number three that we talked about, the biggest takeaway is just to run your offense. Just run your offense just like you've been doing. Run your offense like we talked about with Oregon, just like we talked about with Nix and Oregon. Not to mention your receivers. Let your receivers go win some matchups. You got several NFL receivers out there. Let them go win those matchups, right? But big takeaway for, I think, both teams, both from Nix, both from Michael Penix, is run your offense, get the ball out quick, let the DBs, opposing DBs, dictate when to take those deep shots, especially if you're Washington. Like, you've had so much success, but you don't want to force anything just because you've had success in the past. This is the best team you faced. So I think you get the ball out quick if you're Penix, let the DBs creep in, and then you take your shots deep there. It's super impressive numbers on Penix as well. I know we mentioned it, but the fact that he has so many yards outside the numbers and inside the numbers, I think is pretty impressive. Like, a lot of times you look at quarterbacks and they might have 70, 80% of their throws or passing yards inside the numbers, right? That doesn't always mean middle of the field. It just means that the field where the ball is going maybe isn't pushed outside as much. So the fact that Penix is almost at 50% on outside number throws and inside number throws, I think is pretty impressive. Going to be a really exciting game, really exciting matchup. I think really similar team. That's why the spread's so close, right? I think it's about 3 for Washington right now. So meaning if you're a neutral field, it's basically a pick 'em. So going to be a fun game for sure. Again, keys for Nix. We'll kind of wrap it up here with this game and move on. Keys for Nix: run your offense. What have you been doing? Well, play action's been working great. The ball's been getting out quick. You're extremely accurate. There haven't been a ton of downfield throws. Like we said, only 23 completions when the ball's thrown 10 yards or more. But I think to win the game, there's probably going to have to be a few more completions pushed downfield for Oregon to win. And that's okay, right? That you run your offense, the DBs creep up, that's when you take your shots. Penix, similar to Nix, even though you've had more than twice the completions of the ball thrown 20 yards or more, I still think the ball comes out quick. You try to slow down that pass rush of Oregon, distribute the ball to the whole field, and then give your receivers a chance to go win those matchups, right? Super exciting game. Again, we don't do a ton of Pac-12, but with Oregon and Washington and two of the best quarterbacks in the nation playing, we definitely wanted to deep dive that. All right, so let's go move on to Texas A&M and Tennessee next. Another interesting and kind of fun game to watch from the quarterback perspective. Take a quick swig. And if you're watching this video live, let us know if you have any comments or questions or quarterbacks you want to hit on in the chat. And then if you're watching this after it's recorded, just leave us a comment. Let us know what you want to see next from our live show. All right, let's dive into it. Let's talk Max Johnson. Let's talk what Max Johnson needs to do to have success against a Tennessee defense that has played a lot better than last year. If you haven't paid attention to Tennessee's defense, like if you've just been queued up with the scores, you still have like this impression of what they were last year, then you've missed it. They are definitely an improved defense. They're definitely getting pressure after the quarterback. It's not just pressure coming from those first few games, right? They start off with UVA and they had an FCS opponent, so they had a lot of pressure in those games, but they've been able to get pressure the following games. They're coming off a bye week, but before the bye week, they pretty much had their way with South Carolina. South Carolina's offensive line isn't great by any means, but they were still able to get pressure. So It's an improved defense. They've gotten a lot of pressure. They have 24 sacks of the season right now. So you can look for them to try to get pressure on Max Johnson, right? So if you're Max Johnson and you know this and you're going into this game, what are your keys to success? Well, I think number one is don't be a statue in the pocket. Max Johnson is more athletic than people probably think, but he needs it to kind of almost be designed. Like, you need to be getting out of the pocket. You're not going to make a bunch of plays when the pressure is coming down on you. But if you have a play designed or a play set up to get yourself outside the pocket, whether it's like a partial roll or designed rollout, getting some designed quarterback runs, I think that can be a successful key to limit the Tennessee pass rush. Like against Alabama last week, I think Alabama had 5 or 6 sacks on Max Johnson. He wasn't really able to get going, right? It's because he was just kind of standing in the pocket, holding on the ball too long. When you compare Max Johnson's game against Arkansas 2 weeks ago, he had some pretty big runs and he was able to get going, right? So I think he kind of needs that momentum to get going. So don't be a statue. I think you get Max Johnson moving, some design rollout, some straight quarterback runs, and just don't hold on the ball too long if you're Max Johnson. You don't want to be playing on 2nd and 15, 3rd and 16 type throws, right? You want to avoid those long down and distances. With that said, though, he has been really good against pressure, impressively good against pressure. So far this season, he's 25 of 48 for 316 yards passing and 4 touchdowns when pressure is in his face. That's really good number. That's really impressive, right? And that's a compliment to Max being able to, I think, process defenses from pre-snap to post-snap and being able to go through his reads and get the ball out. Like you saw that early against Alabama this past week, especially the first few drives, some 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6s. He hits his crossing routes, and the guy's able to run 20, 30 yards. So I think it's the ability like that to process defenses, but you have to do it consistently. He's been really good against pressure, but he can still hold on the ball too long. So you have to do that consistently. I think you're going to have to be good against pressure against Tennessee, because even if you do get the run game going from Johnson, even if he's able to use his legs and avoid some pressure, I still think it's safe to say Tennessee's going to get some pressure on Johnson. So if you're Johnson, you're going to have to be good with it. And then number 3, the last key, kind of similar to Michael Penix that we talked about, distribute the ball all over the field. Make Tennessee defend the whole field, not just the middle of the field. Make them defend the entire field, short range, mid range, whatever it may be, deep shots. And he's been pretty consistent and done a pretty good job distributing it the entire field, throwing short passes and throwing deep passes. So I think to help ultimately win the game, he's going to have to kind of follow that blueprint, kind of follow the blueprint that Florida had against Tennessee to an extent. Like, Florida was efficient throwing the ball. They had a lot of just short throws. They took what the defense gave them. They didn't have really any deep shots, but I think you can follow Florida's blueprint as far as taking what the defense gives you. And then if you're Johnson, you have the receivers and you have the ability to take some shots deep, right? So if you're Max Johnson and you're playing against the Tennessee defense, those are the 3 keys just to kind of wrap and summarize things up. It's you take what the defense gives you, follow that Florida blueprint, short, medium throws. When they creep up, that's when you take your shots deep. Number 2, you're going to have to be good against pressure. Just like we talked about, Tennessee's getting pressure. Max Johnson's been pretty good against pressure, so you're going to have to perform well against pressure. And then number 1, I guess the last key is just don't be a statue in the pocket. Don't hold on the ball too long. Get the run game going, whether it's that designed rollouts from the play caller or just some quarterback runs. Get the run game going to help slow down that pressure. All right, let's move on to Joe Milton, quarterback for Tennessee. Again, I'm excited to see Milton against this defense. A&M's defense is pretty stout. They've been solid. So I'm excited to see Milton against this defense and see if Tennessee's offense kind of takes the step that the fans want them to take right now. All right, so when you think about A&M's defense, let's talk about A&M's defense first, and then we'll go into some Joe Milton. When you think about A&M's defense, you think about pressure. At one point, they led college football in sacks, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're still up there. They had 5 or 6 against Jalen Milroe from Alabama last week. They had like 7 against KJ Jefferson the week before. So, and Milroe had like negative 30-something yards rushing, right? So he wasn't able to get the run game going either. So they've been able to shut down mobile quarterbacks. They've been able to get pressure on the quarterbacks. They've been able to really cause some havoc back there. So A&M's defense, I think, is one of the best defenses probably in the nation. So when you think about A&M's defense, you think pressure, pressure, pressure. Joe Milton, I think he's probably played better than give him credit for. I think he's run the offense good. I think they probably still want some more deep shots and some accuracy downfield. But overall, I think he's actually done pretty well. Now, the one thing he struggled on is facing pressure. Now, we talked about Max Johnson, and Johnson's been able to play pretty well when pressure in his face. Milton's struggled against pressure, and most quarterbacks do. When there's pressure in your face, it's hard to throw. Milton's 9 of 31 this year for 295 yards passing, 2 TDs, and 2 picks throwing against pressure when pressure's in his face, right? So A&M is going to want to get pressure. A&M is going to want to kind of cause havoc, especially the fact that he hasn't been fantastic against pressure. So how do you slow down the pressure if you're Milton? Well, I think it's kind of similar to Max Johnson, but I think you can use your legs. Like, I know I just mentioned that A&M's defense has shut down Milrow running, shut down KJ Jefferson running, right? A lot of those yardage have been sacked. So I think if you're Milton, I think early in the game, I think getting some true quarterback design runs, some RPOs where maybe you tell Milton, hey, just keep it this time. Just use your legs this time. Let's try to pick up the first down with your legs. I think that can potentially slow down the pressure of A&M's offense, right? I don't know if it's always the best option to always drop back against A&M's defense, even if it's off play action, something they do a lot of. But I don't know if that's always the best option to do. So I think number one, use your legs, you're Milton. You're a good athlete. You're able to do that. And I know traditionally you want to just drop back and rip it, but use your legs some against this A&M defense. Number two, I think you're going to have to hit on some deep balls to win this game. I really do. I think A&M, they know the type of offense you run, right? And similar to Bo Nix, a lot of Milton's completions, like almost half of his completions are behind the line of scrimmage. I think 47 of his completions are behind the line of scrimmage. I think he has like 111. I don't know. I forget the exact completions. I did not write that down. That's my fault. But 47 completions have been thrown behind the line of scrimmage. Aggies are going to give that to him. The Aggies are going to give that every time, right? They're going to let you keep it in front. Even if you drive a little bit, they're going to let you have those short passes. So I think to win the game, I think to come out on top, you're going to have to hit on some deep passes. No big deal, right? He's only had 8 completions of 20 yards or more downfield so far. But still, if they force you to push it downfield, and if you're Joe Milton, it's time to say, hey, okay, like everyone's been talking about my accuracy, I can't hit incompletions downfield, so go out and prove people wrong. But that's how Alabama was able to beat A&M last week. They gave Milrow those short passes, and to Milrow's credit, he did pretty well on the short passes, short completions, but they said, hey, just take these short passes, and if you are going to beat us, it's going to be in these deep, explosive passes that are tough, hard throws. Well, Milrow had 6 completions where the ball was thrown over 20 yards or more in the air. And right now, Milton only has 8 the entire year. So I think to beat A&M, you're going to have some of those type of throws, because some of those throws were just NFL next-level throws by Milrow. People can say what they want about him, but when it comes to making some really tough throws, he's pretty damn good at it. So I think to beat A&M, to have some explosive plays against this defense, you're going to have to make some of those tough throws, the throws that Milrow made last week. He did a really good job. Last key, I think, for Milton, and this is more Tennessee in general, but I think the Tennessee receivers are going to have to make some plays, break some tackles. Yeah, we talked about Milton pushing the ball downfield. Yeah, we talked about Milton having to hit on some of those explosive plays probably to win. But their offense is centered around getting the ball out quick, receiver screens, just receivers catch the ball in space. So I think for that to continue to work, I think to continue to have success against A&M, I think some of the receivers are going to have to break some tackles and make some plays on those screens there. Should be a really exciting game. I think probably one of my favorite games to watch this weekend. Again, Tennessee, Texas A&M. We'll kind of recap it real quick. Max Johnson, what are the keys against this Tennessee defense? Don't be a statue in the pocket. Use your legs some, right? You know that pressure has been one of the main things Tennessee's defense has been able to do. 2, you have to be good against pressure, and he is good against pressure. So you have to consistently do that against pressure. And number 3, distribute the ball all over the field. Force Tennessee's defense to cover the whole field. Milton, recapping against A&M's defense. Again, similar to Tennessee's defense, A&M's defense has been excellent so far, and their MO is just getting pressure. I think they lead college football in sacks. I'm not sure, but if not, they're up there, right? So if you're Milton, I think use your legs. I think some design quarterback runs early in the game to get Tennessee or get A&M's defense maybe out of position. Number 2, I think you're going to have to hit on some deep balls to win. Milrow had 6 of those deep balls last week to win. Milrow, excuse me. And then Milton has only had 8 of those deep balls so far completed this whole season. So I think you have to have some deep balls to beat A&M's defense, and then hopefully receivers can make some plays as well on those quick receiver screens. All right, let's move on here. Again, anyone in the chat, if you have any quarterbacks or people y'all want talked about, let us know. Those are kind of the deep dives for the games we're going to talk about. I got a few other quarterbacks I want to deep dive, then we'll hit on a few other quarterbacks. All right, so real quick, we'll go Jaden Daniels against Auburn. Probably my favorite quarterback to watch play so far this season. has been deadly accurate, not just short range, but deep range as well. He's number one or tied for number one in the nation when it comes to balls completed that have been thrown in the air 20 yards or more downfield. He's got 20 of those. It's been unreal. Distributing the ball all over the field, just like we talked about with Michael Penix. Outside the numbers, inside the numbers, doesn't matter where. He's been putting the ball all over the field. And they have a pretty tough defense in Auburn. Auburn's defense, the most points they've given up so far this season has been 27 to Georgia and to A&M. And Georgia had 7 of those points came in the fourth quarter that Georgia came to take the lead. I think Auburn's defense played fantastic against them. Auburn's defense played really well against A&M. I think some of those points came off turnovers or A&M got the ball in a short field. So regardless, that defense has played pretty stout. They made UGA earn the win. There was nothing special about or fluky that they stay in the game. Their defense made A&M or made Georgia earn that win. So if you're Jayden Daniels, what are the big keys? Well, one, distribute the ball. He's been doing. You have arguably the best receiving group in the nation, right? You have some really solid NFL receivers. Distribute the ball to them all over the field. No turnovers. That's always a freaking pet peeve of mine whenever people talk about the keys of the game, don't turn the ball over. But I think in this case, in this game, it's really specific because Auburn's offense hasn't done much as of late. Now LSU's defense struggles a lot. So you just don't want to give them a short field. You don't want to keep them in the game. You don't want to give them a reason to stay in the game. So no turnovers. And just take what the defense gives you if you're Jayden Daniels. You've had all this success, but there's no reason to force it or push it, especially starting off. Yeah, you can make any throw. You're literally throwing your guys open like every play. It's not just guys getting schemed wide open. Like you're making NFL-type throws. But you take what the defense gives you and know those deep shots are going to be coming at some point, even if it's not in the first quarter. Again, Jayden Daniels, Auburn, I think it's an underrated game, but I don't think it's going to be a shootout. Like I think Auburn's offense, even though LSU's defense has really struggled, what Auburn does, they don't really have a passing game. And that's been LSU's biggest weakness on defense is defending the pass. Now, their run game, LSU's run defense is much better than the pass defense. And so I think LSU can I don't think you'll see as many points as the past few weeks is kind of what I'm getting at. So I don't know if it's going to take LSU having to score 40 points this game to win. So that's why you take what the defense gives you. All right, last quarterback we'll kind of deep dive on, and then we'll kind of hit a few more games. And that's Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback we always talk about each week. They got Stanford coming up this week. It's a Friday night game, kind of like 10 Eastern, 9 Central, right? So kind of late. A team you don't want to necessarily sleep on. Now they're 11-point favorites, I think Colorado is, but with Colorado right now, I think most every team they play is going to have a chance for the simple fact they can score probably on Colorado's defense, and they're going to get pressure on Shedeur. And to me, like my big takeaway, my only real note was, hey, it's the same story, different week, same story, different team. You're going to have to find a way to slow down that pressure. Shedeur's getting hit and hit and hit. And then, he's such a great situational player that when the time comes, he's able to make those throws to win or put his team in position. So if you're Shedeur, if you're the Colorado offense, same story, different game, different team. Find a way to avoid pressure, slow down pressure. I think the best example of that may have been against USC, to be honest. Like the run game got going. They were able to utilize the play action. And Shedeur used his legs. So I think that's kind of the same keys against Stanford. Use your legs, some quarterback design runs, get Shedeur throwing outside the pocket. Even if he's more comfortable inside the pocket, you want to do anything you can to slow down that pass rush. The threat of him rolling out could potentially slow down the pass rush on other plays. So that's why I like it, right? So get some rollouts, get Shedeur using his legs, hopefully get the run game going. That's going to protect the offensive line, and then get the ball out quick. That's an easy one. Get the ball out quick. Just like we saw in the beginning of the season against TCU in that first few drives. The ball was out quick, and then you set up your deep shots. Shedeur is one of the most accurate quarterbacks from throwing deep, from throwing short. So with that said, the deep ball is going to be there, but I think the biggest thing is making sure he has time to drop back, go through his reads, and put the ball out, right? So real quick, just to recap his keys against Stanford, use your legs, I think, more and more. I think that can slow down the defense. Get the run game going if you can, right? That's a huge key. Like against Arizona State last week, they had 50 or 60 yards rushing on 30-something attempts. Now, Shedeur, I think maybe 17, he had negative 17 yards rushing because of sacks. But still, even if you take away those sack yardage, you have 70 yards rushing on 30-something attempts. So there's just no threat of the run game, and that takes away the play action. The play action can be so crucial for Colorado in that offense, right? So I think if you're Shedeur Sanders, same story, different week. find a way to avoid pressure. And I know that's probably the main thing that their offensive staff is going on and talking about. All right, let's hit a few more games. A few more big games. USC Notre Dame. We don't do a ton of USC Notre Dame coverage because we don't have a lot of people that are fans or interested in that keep up with what we do. But at least wanted to hit on it. Caleb Williams, best quarterback in the nation, still playing top-notch football. Even the struggle on their win last week, where they barely came away against Arizona, he still found a way to win. And then Sam Hartman, Notre Dame, coming off of just got crushed, right? Like against Louisville, like they just got crushed. They couldn't do anything offensively. And that before that was against Duke, where they found a way to win at the very end. That was because Sam Hartman ran a 4th and 17. And before that was against Ohio State, where defensively they played good, but offensively they scored 14 points. So they just haven't been able to get anything going offensively. Now they've played some tough teams. They've played them close, besides getting blown up by Louisville at the end of the game. But I think it comes down to Hartman, like let him loose, whatever you got to do. It probably going to be a high scoring-ish game. So hopefully Notre Dame and Hartman can find their footing here against USC. All right, North Carolina, Miami. I know everyone's talking about the botched play calling at the end of the game for Miami and Georgia Tech, to say the least, or to be nice about it. So I think it's kind of a fascinating game, just in general. Not even talking quarterbacks, just a fascinating game to see how Miami bounces back and how they respond to that. Now, if we're talking quarterbacks, it's two of the better quarterbacks in college football, or at least in the ACC. Of course, Drake May, one of the best in college football. Tyler Van Dyke with the potential to be one of the better quarterbacks in college football. It's just a consistency thing. Like, you need him to be what he was against Texas A&M. Like, that was an NFL-style game, right, from those throws, 5 touchdowns, pushing the ball all over the field. And then against Georgia Tech, they're able to move the ball. They just couldn't finish. I think you have to finish drives for Tyler Van Dyke. And then Drake May has been playing more and more like the Drake May that we saw last year. The past few games, last game against Syracuse was probably his best game, 400-something yards passing. Had a really good game against Pitt, 400-something yards passing, even with a few picks. So Drake May is coming back and playing like he did in 2022. So I think it should be a fun matchup. Again, the storylines everyone's going to be talking about, the coaching stuff at Miami. So we'll be tuned in, but I'm excited to see those two quarterbacks battle it out as well. All right, Mizzou and Kentucky. Brady Cook, Mizzou quarterback, one of my favorite quarterbacks. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. And he's been playing like it. He was lights out against LSU, despite throwing 2 picks, one of those pick 6 at the very end of the game. But he had over 400 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Like he was able to keep Mizzou ahead most of the game. But he's been playing good football, not just against LSU's poor defense, but he's been playing good football the entire season. Like, I think he's a top half, maybe a top 5 quarterback in the SEC, if not higher. Like, he's got that type of potential. I think he's played really good. He's had a bounce back season, or he's not even bounce back season. He's just improved from last year. So I'm excited to watch him play against Kentucky. And Kentucky's offense is kind of the opposite of Mizzou. Mizzou's been scoring a lot of points for the most part, been able to hit on some deep plays, where Kentucky's offense has relied on their run game. And Devin Leary, their quarterback, is someone I was really high on coming into the season. They haven't found any rhythm yet. They haven't found anything to kind of get them going and keep them in a groove yet. I don't know if that's this week. I don't know if they do find that. I thought that he would be one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC this year, and I've been definitely wrong about that. But still, the potential is there. I'll be tuned in because it's SEC and it's 2 quarterbacks that we enjoy to watch. But yeah, Devin Leary and Brady Cook, Mizzou and Kentucky. Let's hit on a few more. South Carolina and Florida. I think a super interesting game. The key for South Carolina is always going to be like it is for Colorado. Can you keep Spencer Rattler upright? Can you keep him from getting hit? Can you keep him from being under pressure? Like, Rattler's made some fantastic throws. I think he's having a pretty good season, but it could be even better if the offensive line or if the pressure issues, whoever's fault it is able to get fixed. And Florida's got a pretty stout defense. Florida's defense has kept them in most every game besides getting blown out against Kentucky, 33-14. But that defense is pretty good. When it comes to Graham Mertz for Florida, man, he's actually played pretty good football. He plays within the system. So I think it's the same key playing against South Carolina. You just play within the system. Play within the system if you're Graham Mertz. I think last week he was like 30 or 36, like 260 yards passing or something. So yards per attempt are extremely low. There's really no deep shots, no threat of the ball being pushed downfield. But that's okay because the offense doesn't call for that right now. Now to pull off some wins against some teams that are better than you, you're going to have to push the ball downfield some. But right now, you play within the offense. So I think it's going to be a fun, close game, as a lot of SEC games are, right? So for Rattler, can they keep him upright? Can you find ways to avoid pressure? For March, play within the system like you've been doing. Arkansas, Bama, we'll hit on that real quick. Is there any real chance of the upset for Arkansas? It would have to be a KJ Jefferson performance like it was in 2021. It was like him and Treylon Burks. I think they lose that game by 1 point. It was something crazy, right? But it was an awesome game to watch, and KJ was just dealing and dealing and dealing. Now he was in an offense that suited him really well. So we're not going to get into the like Arkansas's offensively we know is a mess right now, and we're not going to really get into that right now. But for them to put up the upset, the offensive identity would have to change for Arkansas, and it'd have to be like the KJ version of 2021, like that type of game, for them to have a chance. Alabama's defense is pretty stout. Jalen Milroe and the receivers probably should have a good game, but they're coming off a huge win against A&M. So maybe there's a slow start. Arkansas's defense is probably a lot better than given credit for. If Arkansas's offense was playing better, than that defense may be getting a little more credit there. But definitely always a game to keep a watch on. But I think the offense and KJ, like they're gonna have to play like perfect football to have a chance at that upset. We'll be tuned in regardless. Again, if there's any other quarterbacks that we haven't talked about so far, you want to go back to, let us know in the comments below, the chat below. And if you're rewatching this after the live show is done, which hopefully you are, like, share, and subscribe, all that stuff. And let us know some more comments if there's quarterbacks you want to talk about. Let's hit on some Group of 5 games coming up, and then we'll wrap this quarterback preview show up. I got five Group of 5 games to touch on real quick. The first one is Georgia Southern and James Madison. Sunbelt's having excellent quarterback play. We put out a Group of 5 live video or live show a few days ago. We talked about Georgia Southern and James Madison. Georgia Southern quarterback Davis Brin running the offense well. They throw all the time. It's almost like Florida, where like the yards per attempt are kind of lower, but they rely on the passing game a lot more than Florida does. So Davis Brin, former Tulsa quarterback, having a pretty good season so far. I think he's second in the Sun Belt in throwing. And then James Madison quarterback Jordan McLeod, the guy who he didn't start originally, right? If you're keeping up with Group of 5 football, he wasn't the starter for game 1, but took over and has been really good since then. 11 touchdowns, 3 picks. He can use his legs. Like, he is a threat if he needs to, but he's been a lot of his damage thrown. So that's going to be a really exciting Sun Belt game. Georgia Southern and James Madison. Another Sun Belt game. We got 3 Sun Belt games to talk about. Another Sun Belt game, Marshall and Georgia State. Georgia State quarterback Darren Granger has played pretty good football. They played Troy, a week or 2 weeks ago, and Troy was able to put an end to like their great offensive play. Now, Troy's like a Power 5 defense. Like, Troy's a really good defense, but Granger's a pretty good quarterback, and they were able to shut him down completely. Marshall quarterback Cam Fancher, probably coming off one of his better games of the season. I think he's a quarterback with a lot of potential. It's just being consistent. He's a guy that can run, can throw. So it's just being consistent if you're Cam Fancher and Marshall. That should be a good game coming up. Sun Belt, another good Sun Belt game. Texas State, ULM. TJ Finley playing outstanding football for Texas State at the quarterback, leading the Sun Belt in yards passing. 16 TDs, I think only 2 picks, something crazy like that. Just having a really good season. I might be off on those numbers, but it's ballpark in that area. And then ULM quarterback Gia Wright. I'm probably mispronouncing the first name, but he's done some nice things as well. So it's something that we'll be tuned into. Let's hit on 2 more Group of 5 games. Boise State and Colorado State. Boise State's kind of, like they came into the season with Taylor Green as their quarterback. Now they've been alternating quarterbacks. I think they're starting Green this week again, but wouldn't be surprised to see 2 quarterbacks play. So it's just something to keep an eye on. And then Colorado State quarterback Braden Fowler Nicolosi. I'm probably always butchering the name, but he's a guy that I like to watch. Now, he's a gunslinger. He'll throw some picks, but he'll sling it all over the field. So I like to watch those type of quarterbacks. So those are probably all the Group of 5 guys or games cues that will hit right now. But before we get out of here, if there's any other questions or any other quarterbacks you want talked about, let us know in this little, what is this little chat thing? Yeah, this little chat below. But if not, another preview, week 7 preview. We'll have an instant reaction show kind of the day after. We'll have a recap talking about the quarterbacks and the quarterback plays after this week on Sunday. Maybe we'll do Group of 5 live again, but then we'll have a preview next week as well. So if you like quarterback content, and if you're rewatching this after we put it out, please like, share, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. It really does help. And looking forward to watching some more legit college football. Oh, real quick before we get out of here, we got some Group of 5 games on tonight. FIU and UTEP. We got one more, Sam Houston State, and who else? Slipping my New Mexico State. That's who I think it is. So tune into that, and then actually some good Thursday night games, some good Friday night games. We talked about Shedeur on Friday. We didn't get into those other games, but there's a few good games coming on this whole week. So tune into those quarterbacks. Again, let us know your thoughts. Like, share, subscribe, all that YouTube podcast stuff. We'll put this in podcast form as well. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Peace.